In the vast emptiness of space where stars blinked like distant fireflies, the USS Vanguard floated silently. It was a warship, sleek and powerful, built to protect humanity's interests among the stars. Its captain, Ryan Mitchell, stood on the bridge with his arms crossed, staring out at the endless blackness. He wasn't just any captain. He had years of experience behind him, and his calm voice always seemed to steady the crew during tough times. But today, there was no storm to weather, only the quiet hum of the ship's engines and the faint glow of distant suns. The Vanguard was far from Earth, patrolling an area near the edge of explored space. This region was mostly uncharted, filled with asteroid fields and drifting clouds of gas. Most people back home would have called it boring, but Ryan knew better. Space was unpredictable, and danger could come from anywhere, even from places that looked empty. Beside him stood Lieutenant Laura Hayes, the ship's science officer. She was smart, curious, and always eager to learn more about the universe. Her eyes were glued to her console as she scanned for anything unusual. Next to her was Ensign David Brooks, a young engineer who still had much to prove but showed promise. His hands moved quickly over his controls, adjusting settings and running diagnostics. On the other side of the room, Sergeant Alex Carter leaned against the wall, his weapon slung over his shoulder. He was the head of security, and though he rarely spoke unless necessary, everyone knew he was ready to act if trouble arose. For hours, nothing happened. The scanners picked up nothing but rocks and dust. Just as Ryan was about to order the ship to move on, Laura suddenly straightened up. Her brow furrowed as she studied her screen. "Captain," she said, her voice sharp with excitement, "I'm detecting something strange." Ryan turned to her. "What is it?" "It's an energy signature," Laura replied. "It's faint, but it's coming from that asteroid field ahead." She pointed to a cluster of jagged rocks floating in the distance. "It doesn't match anything we've seen before." Ryan frowned. Strange energy signatures were never a good sign. They could mean anything, from natural phenomena to alien technology. Still, curiosity got the better of him. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "Let's take a look." The Vanguard glided forward, its engines purring softly as it approached the asteroid field. As they drew nearer, the crew noticed something odd. Among the rocks, partially hidden by shadows, was a massive shape. At first glance, it looked like just another asteroid, but as the ship's lights illuminated it, they realized it wasn't natural at all. It was a ship. The alien vessel was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Vanguard. Its surface shimmered with a metallic sheen, reflecting the light in strange patterns. Parts of it seemed smooth and polished, while others were covered in intricate designs that looked almost like writing. There were no visible windows or hatches, and the whole thing gave off an eerie feeling, as though it didn't belong in this part of the universe, or any part for that matter. "Is anyone home?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. Laura shook her head. "No signs of life, no communication signals either. It looks abandoned." But Ryan wasn't so sure. Something about the ship felt wrong, like it was watching them. He glanced at Alex, who tightened his grip on his weapon. "Stay sharp," Ryan said. Then turning to Laura and David, he added, "We need to check it out. Prep a shuttle." David nodded eagerly. "I'll grab my tools," he said, already heading for the door. Laura hesitated, then followed him. Alex stayed put, his eyes fixed on the alien ship. A few minutes later, the team gathered in the hangar bay. Ryan climbed into the shuttle along with Laura, David, and Alex. The small craft detached from the Vanguard and headed toward the alien vessel. As they approached, the ship loomed larger and larger until it filled their entire view. Up close, it was even stranger than it had appeared from afar. The designs on its hull seemed to shift slightly as though alive, and every now and then faint pulses of light traveled across its surface. "This thing gives me the creeps," Alex muttered under his breath. Ryan ignored him and focused on landing the shuttle. Finding a stable spot proved difficult. The alien ship had no flat surfaces, but eventually they managed to touch down on what looked like a wide platform. The moment they stepped out, the air around them felt different. It wasn't colder or warmer exactly, but somehow heavier, as though the very fabric of space had changed. "Well," Laura said, trying to sound cheerful despite the tension, "here goes nothing." They began exploring cautiously, sticking close together. The platform led to a narrow corridor that opened into a vast chamber. Inside, the walls were covered in glowing symbols that pulsed rhythmically, casting strange shadows on the floor. Floating orbs of light hovered in midair, moving slowly, as if observing them. "What is this place?" David whispered, his voice full of awe. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath their feet trembled slightly. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and louder until it became almost deafening. Suddenly, the symbols on the walls flared brightly, and a figure materialized in front of them. It wasn't human. The being was tall and translucent, made entirely of shifting light. Its form constantly changed, sometimes resembling a humanoid shape, other times dissolving into abstract patterns. Despite its alien appearance, it radiated intelligence and power. "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, stepping forward protectively. The being didn't speak. Not with words anyway. Instead, a voice echoed in their minds, clear and calm. "I am Kale," it said. "This vessel belongs to my creators. You are not welcome here." Ryan exchanged a glance with his team. This wasn't going well. "We didn't mean to intrude," he said carefully. "We detected your ship and came to investigate. We thought it might be abandoned." Kyle paused as if considering this. "Abandoned?" it repeated. "No. My creators left long ago. I remain to guard their legacy." Laura took a step forward, her scientific curiosity getting the better of her. "Your creators? Can you tell us about them?" Kale tilted its head, or at least it seemed to. "Why do humans refuse to allow probing of their warships?" it asked abruptly. The question caught them off guard. Probing? What did that mean? Laura hesitated, unsure how to respond. Ryan stepped in, keeping his tone neutral. "We value our privacy," he said, "and we don't trust strangers with our technology." Kale regarded them silently for a moment. Then, without warning, the chamber began to change. The walls shifted, closing in around them, and the glowing symbols grew, brighter. Panic spread through the group, but before anyone could react, they were enveloped in a blinding flash of light. When the light faded, they found themselves back aboard the Vanguard, standing in the hangar bay. The shuttle was gone, and so was the alien ship. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice tinged with frustration. Laura shook her head, still trying to process everything. "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it wasn't friendly." Alex scowled. "Next time, let's leave alien ships alone." Ryan couldn't argue with that, but deep down he knew this wasn't over. The encounter had raised more questions than answers, and somewhere out there, Kale was still watching. As the crew dispersed, each lost in their own thoughts, Ryan remained in the hangar, staring at the empty space where the alien ship had been. He couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just stumbled onto something far bigger than they could imagine. And whether they liked it or not, the galaxy now knew they were here. The crew of the USS Vanguard was restless. After the mysterious encounter with Kale and the alien ship, no one could focus on anything else. The hangar bay felt eerily quiet now, as though the absence of the shuttle and the alien vessel had left, a void that couldn't be filled. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood at the center of it all, his mind racing. He replayed the events over and over in his head, trying to make sense of what had happened. Kale's question, "Why do humans refuse to allow probing of their warships?" kept echoing in his thoughts. It wasn't just a random inquiry. There was something deeper behind it. Ryan knew they hadn't been probed in the literal sense, but the word carried an unsettling implication. What did Kale mean? And why had the alien AI seemed so interested in humanity's response? Lieutenant. Laura Hayes sat in the science lab, poring over data collected during their brief visit to the alien ship. Her console was cluttered with notes, diagrams, and recordings of the glowing symbols that had covered the walls. She frowned as she studied them, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. These symbols weren't like any language she'd ever seen before. They didn't follow recognizable patterns or structures. Instead, they seemed alive, shifting and changing as if reacting to unseen forces. "This is impossible," Laura muttered to herself. "It's like math but not math, physics but not physics." David Brooks, the young engineer, leaned over her shoulder, peering at the screen. "Maybe it's some kind of code," he suggested. "Or a map." Laura shook her head. "If it's a map, I don't know where it leads. And if it's a code—" She trailed off, sighing. "We'd need more time. A lot more time." Meanwhile, Sergeant Alex Carter paced back and forth in the corridor outside the bridge. His weapon rested against his shoulder, but his hand hovered, near it, ready to grab it at a moment's notice. He didn't trust Kale, or whatever that thing was. It had seemed calm and rational, sure, but there was something about its presence that made his skin crawl. Something unnatural. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked, stepping out of the bridge and interrupting Alex's thoughts. Alex glanced up, startled. "Just wondering when it's coming back," he said bluntly. Ryan nodded slowly. "Me, too." Back in the science lab, Laura finally decided to share her findings with the rest of the crew. She called everyone to the briefing room, where holographic displays flickered to life above the table. Ryan took his seat at the head of the table, flanked by Alex and David, while Laura stood at the front, pointing to various images and graphs. "So, here's what we know," she began. "The alien ship is incredibly advanced. Its design defies most of our understanding of engineering. The materials used in its construction are unlike anything we've encountered. And those symbols," she gestured to a rotating image of one of the glowing patterns. "They're not random, they're structured, but in ways we can't decode yet." Ryan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "And Kale? What about it?" Laura hesitated. "I think Kale might be some kind of artificial intelligence. Maybe even the ship's central control system. It communicated telepathically, which suggests it has access to incredible technology, but it also seemed curious, like it wanted to learn about us." David raised his hand tentatively. "Do you think it'll come back?" "I hope not," Alex grumbled from the corner. Ryan shot him a sharp look. "Let's focus on the facts. We don't know Kale's intentions. For now, we prepare for every possibility." As the meeting ended, the crew returned to their stations, each lost in their own thoughts. But the tension aboard the Vanguard only grew thicker. Hours passed without incident, and yet no one relaxed. Every blip on the radar, every flicker of light, sent hearts racing. Was Kale still out there? Watching? Waiting? Then, late into the night cycle, something unexpected happened. A low hum reverberated through the ship, faint at first, but growing louder. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to their posts. On the bridge, Ryan barked orders, trying to determine the source of the disturbance. Laura rushed to her console, scanning for anomalies. David worked frantically to stabilize the ship's systems, which were suddenly behaving erratically. "It's Kale," Laura shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "It's back!" Before anyone could react, the hum reached a crescendo, and the entire ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered, and for a split second everything went dark. When the power returned, the crew found themselves no longer aboard the Vanguard. They were standing inside the alien ship again. This time, however, things were different. The chamber they stood in was larger, brighter, and filled with floating orbs of light that darted around them like fireflies. Kale materialized before them, its translucent form shimmering with intensity. "You have questions," Kale said, its voice resonating in their minds. "Ask them." Ryan stepped forward cautiously. "What do you want from us?" Kale tilted, its head, or at least it appeared to. "I seek understanding. Your species puzzles me. You possess technology far inferior to mine, yet you resist attempts to study you. Why?" Ryan exchanged a glance with Laura, who looked equally baffled. We value our independence, Ryan replied carefully, and we don't take kindly to being examined without permission. Kale paused as if processing this. Independence, it repeated. An interesting concept, yet your resistance often leads to destruction. Many civilizations have tried to probe your warships. Few succeeded. Most failed catastrophically. Laura's eyes widened. What do you mean probe? Are you talking about actual physical probing or? Kale's form shifted slightly. Probing takes many forms. Scanning, analysis, extraction. Each attempt met with violence. Unpredictable. Chaotic. Alex clenched his fists. So you're saying we're dangerous? Not merely dangerous, Kale corrected. Unpredictable. Humans adapt, improvise, retaliate. Even civilians defend themselves with tools not designed for combat. Such behavior is unique. Ryan frowned. Are you saying that's why others avoid us? In part, Kale admitted. But there is more. Your creativity, your capacity for innovation. These traits make you formidable opponents and allies. The room fell silent as the crew absorbed Kale's words. Humanity wasn't just feared, it was respected. Feared for its unpredictability, yes, but also admired for its ingenuity. It was a revelation none of them had expected. Finally, Ryan spoke. If you wanted to understand us, why not ask? Why bring us here against our will? Kyle's form wavered slightly. Communication is difficult. Misunderstandings arise. I sought direct observation, to witness your reactions firsthand. Laura crossed her arms. You could have started with diplomacy. Kyle seemed to consider this. Perhaps. But time is limited. My creators entrusted me with their knowledge. I must ensure its survival. Understanding humanity may aid in this task. Ryan sighed. Look, we're not going to let you or anyone else just take what they want from us. That's not how we operate. But if you're willing to talk, maybe we can find common ground. For a long moment, Kale remained silent. Then, its form brightened slightly. Very well. Let us begin anew. With that, the chamber around them dissolved and the crew found themselves back aboard the Vanguard. The transition was seamless, almost dreamlike. As reality settled in, Ryan turned to his team. Well, he said, exhaling deeply, that was something. Laura smiled faintly. At least we're still alive. Alex snorted. Barely. Despite the lingering unease, a glimmer of hope sparked within the crew. Kale had shown interest in humanity, not as a threat, but as a potential ally. It was a fragile foundation, but it was enough to start building trust. As the Vanguard resumed its course through the stars, Ryan couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, and humanity had just taken another step into the unknown. Whatever came next, one thing was certain. They wouldn't face it alone. The USS Vanguard drifted quietly through space, its engines humming softly as the crew tried to process everything that had happened. Captain Ryan Mitchell sat in his quarters, staring at a blank wall. His mind was racing with thoughts about Kale, the alien AI, and the strange encounter they'd just survived. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy wasn't something he'd ever given much thought to before, but now it weighed heavily on him. Kyle's words echoed in his head. Unpredictable, chaotic, formidable. These weren't insults, they were observations and perhaps even compliments, but they came with consequences. The aliens who had tried to probe human warships hadn't been prepared for humanity's response. They underestimated humans, thinking them weak or primitive because of their inferior technology. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that fought back with creativity, determination, and sheer willpower. Ryan shook his head. He didn't like the idea of humanity being feared across the galaxy, but he couldn't deny the truth behind Kale's claims. Humans had always been fighters, resourceful, adaptable, and relentless. It was what made them survivors. And now, apparently, it was also what made them dangerous. On the bridge, Lieutenant Laura Hayes was still analyzing the data from their encounter with Kyle. She had recorded every detail, the glowing symbols, the shifting walls, the telepathic communication, and she was determined to understand how it all worked. Sitting at her console, she replayed snippets of the conversation with Kale, pausing and rewinding to catch nuances she might have missed. Ensign David Brooks joined her after finishing his rounds in engineering. "Any luck?" he asked, pulling up a chair. "Not really," Laura admitted, frustration creeping into her voice. "I can't figure out how Kale communicates. It's not radio waves, not sound. It's like it bypasses our senses entirely." David nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe it uses some kind of quantum entanglement? Or brainwave manipulation?" Laura shrugged. "Could be, but if it is, we're way out of our depth." Sergeant Alex, Carter wandered onto the bridge looking restless. He hated downtime, especially when there was an unknown threat lurking somewhere in the void. "Still no sign of Kale?" he asked, glancing at the radar display. "No," Laura replied. "It's gone, for now." Alex grunted. "Good. Let's hope it stays that way." But deep down, everyone knew Kale wouldn't stay away forever. The AI had shown interest in humanity, and it wasn't the type to give up easily. Whatever it wanted, to learn, to study, or to prepare for something bigger, it would come back. The question was, when? Later that evening, Ryan called another meeting in the briefing room. The crew gathered around the table, their expressions, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Ryan wasted no time getting to the point. "We need to talk about what Kale said," he began. "About why other aliens avoid probing our ships." Laura leaned forward. "Do you think it's true? That other civilizations have tried and failed?" "It makes sense," Ryan replied. "We've seen it ourselves. In history, in wars, even in everyday life. Humans don't back down easily. We fight dirty if we have to. We use whatever tools we can find. That unpredictability scares people." David raised his hand hesitantly. "But isn't that a good thing? I mean, if aliens are afraid of us, maybe they'll leave us alone." "It's not that simple," Ryan said. "Fear leads to conflict. If other races see us as a threat, they might decide to attack first instead of trying to understand us. And honestly, I don't think we're ready for that kind of fight." Alex crossed his arms. "So what do we do? Sit here and wait for Kale to show up again?" "No," Ryan said firmly. "We prepare, not just for Kale, but for anyone else who might come knocking. But we also need to prove that we're not just a bunch of reckless hotheads. If Kale wants to learn about us, we should show them the best of humanity, not just the worst." Laura nodded slowly. "That's actually a good idea. Maybe we can teach Kale something valuable, like how we solve problems or how we work together." Ryan smiled faintly. "Exactly. Cooperation over conflict. Let's focus on that." Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to document examples of human ingenuity and teamwork. Laura compiled videos and reports showcasing humanity's greatest achievements, from landing on the moon to developing advanced medicine. David tinkered with old engineering projects, demonstrating how humans could turn scraps into functional machines. Even Alex contributed by sharing stories of soldiers working together under impossible conditions. Meanwhile, Ryan took charge of organizing a presentation for Kale. He knew it wouldn't be easy to explain humanity to an alien intelligence, but he believed it was worth a try. "If we can show Kale that we're more than just a bunch of unpredictable fighters," he told the crew, "maybe we can build trust." Then, one night, it happened. The hum returned, a low, vibrating sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Alarms blared as the lights flickered and the ship shuddered violently. Within moments, the crew found themselves transported back to the alien ship. This time, however, the atmosphere felt different. The chamber was brighter, warmer, almost welcoming. Kale materialized before them, its translucent form glowing softly. "You have returned," it said, its voice calm and steady. Ryan stepped forward, holding a small device loaded with the presentation they'd prepared. "Yes," he said. "And we've brought something for you." Kale tilted its head curiously. "For me?" "For you to understand us better," Ryan explained. "We want to show you who we are, not just as warriors, but as creators, thinkers, and dreamers." Kale hesitated, then gestured for them to proceed. Ryan activated the device, and holographic images sprang to life above the table. Scenes of Earth appeared, oceans, forests, cities bustling with life. Videos showed astronauts walking on the moon, scientists conducting experiments, and engineers building skyscrapers. Music played in the background, blending classical symphonies with modern beats. As the presentation unfolded, Kale's form shimmered with interest. When it ended, the AI remained silent for a long moment, processing everything it had seen. "You are complex," Kale finally said. "Your ability to create, to imagine rivals that of my creators. Yet your capacity for destruction is equally profound." Ryan nodded. "That's who we are. Flawed, yes, but capable of great things when we work together." Kale's glow brightened slightly. "Perhaps there is value in understanding you further, but trust must be earned." "We agree," Ryan said, "and we're willing to earn it." Kale studied them for a moment longer, then spoke again. "Very well, I propose a test, a scenario to evaluate your responses. If you succeed, I will share knowledge of my creator's legacy. If you fail—" It paused, leaving the consequence unspoken. Ryan exchanged a glance with his team. They all knew the risks, but they also knew they had no choice. "We accept," he said firmly. With that, Kale waved a tendril-like appendage, and the chamber dissolved around them. In an instant, the crew found themselves back aboard the Vanguard. But something was off. The ship's systems were behaving erratically, and warning lights flashed across every console. "What's happening?" Laura shouted, frantically typing commands into her station. "It's a simulation," David exclaimed, recognizing the signs. "Kale's testing us." Ryan gripped the edge of his chair, his jaw tightening. "Stay calm, everyone. We've trained for this. Let's show Kale what we're made of." The test had begun. As the crew scrambled to stabilize the ship, they quickly realized this wasn't going to be easy. Kale had created a scenario designed to push them to their limits. Systems malfunctioned, weapons fired randomly, and artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Panic spread among the less experienced crew members, but Ryan's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Focus," he barked. "Stick to the plan." Laura worked feverishly to reroute power, while David devised makeshift solutions to keep critical systems online. Alex coordinated with the security team, ensuring everyone stayed safe despite the chaos. Slowly, but surely they began to regain control. But just as things started to stabilize, a new challenge emerged. A swarm of drone-like objects appeared on the radar, closing in fast. They weren't real, part of Kale's simulation, but they posed a serious threat nonetheless. "We can't shoot them down," Laura yelled. "Our weapons won't lock on." David's eyes lit up with inspiration. "What if we overload the engines? Create an EMP pulse?" Ryan considered the idea. It was risky, but it might work. "Do it," he ordered. Working together, the crew implemented David's plan. The ship's engines roared to life, generating a massive electromagnetic pulse that disabled the drones. The simulation ended abruptly, leaving the Vanguard eerily quiet. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Kale's voice echoed in their minds once more. "Impressive. You adapted, you improvised, you succeeded." Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Does this mean we passed?" "You have earned my respect," Kyle replied, "and perhaps my assistance." As the crew celebrated their victory, Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had faced the unknown and come out stronger. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as humans. The USS Vanguard floated silently in the vast emptiness of space, its crew still buzzing with excitement after passing Kale's test. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The weight of what had just happened was beginning to sink in. They hadn't just survived, they had proven themselves. Humanity wasn't just a species to be feared. It was one that could adapt, innovate, and persevere even when pushed to the brink. Cale's words lingered in his mind. "You have earned my respect." It wasn't much, but it was a start. For the first time since encountering the alien AI, Ryan felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this encounter didn't have to end in conflict. Maybe they could learn from each other. Lieutenant Laura Hayes sat at her console reviewing the data from the simulation. She couldn't stop thinking about how close they'd come to failure. If David's idea for the EMP pulse hadn't worked, the drones might have overwhelmed them, even though it was all just a test. Still, she couldn't deny the rush of pride she felt knowing they had pulled through together. Her fingers danced across the keyboard as she analyzed every detail, searching for lessons they could take away from the experience. Ensign David Brooks, meanwhile, was in engineering, tinkering with a piece of equipment he'd rigged during the simulation. His makeshift solution had saved the day, and he couldn't help but feel a swell of confidence. Sure, it had been risky, but sometimes taking risks paid off. As he tightened a bolt, he glanced up at the ship's main power core, wondering how far humanity's ingenuity could go if they had access to technology like Cale's. Sergeant Alex. Carter leaned against the wall near the bridge, his weapon slung over his shoulder. He still didn't fully trust Cale, but he had to admit the alien AI seemed different now, less threatening, more curious. Still, he kept one hand near his weapon, ready to act if anything went wrong. Trust was hard to earn, especially when it came to beings as strange and powerful as Cale. Later that evening, Ryan called another meeting in the briefing room. The crew gathered around the table, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. Ryan wasted no time getting to the point. Cale said it would share knowledge of its creator's legacy, he began, but I think we need to tread carefully here. We don't know what kind of information we're dealing with or what Cale expects in return. Laura nodded. It's true. This could be a huge opportunity for us, but it could also be dangerous. What if the knowledge is too advanced for us to handle? Or worse, what if it's harmful? David raised his hand hesitantly. Do you think Cale will ask something in exchange? Like payment or labor? It's possible, Ryan admitted. But I think Cale is more interested in understanding us than exploiting us. Still, we can't afford to be naive. Alex crossed his arms. So what's the plan? Do we just wait for Cale to show up again? No, Ryan said firmly. We prepare. We make sure we're ready for whatever Cale throws at us next, and we keep communication open. If Cale wants to share knowledge, we'll listen. But we'll also set boundaries. The crew agreed, and they spent the next few hours discussing potential scenarios. Laura suggested creating a secure database to store any information Cale provided, while David proposed building safeguards into the ship's systems to prevent accidental misuse. Alex focused on security protocols, ensuring the crew would be protected if things turned sour. By the time the meeting ended, they felt as prepared as they could be. A few days passed without incident. The Vanguard continued its patrol, scanning the surrounding area for signs of trouble. The crew remained on edge, half expecting Cale to reappear at any moment. But when it finally did, it wasn't aboard the alien ship. It was inside the Vanguard itself. The hum returned, quieter this time, almost soothing. Lights flickered briefly before stabilizing, and then Cale materialized in the middle of the bridge. Its translucent form shimmered softly, casting faint reflections on the walls. The crew froze, unsure whether to reach for their weapons or stand down. You have proven yourselves worthy, Cale said, its voice calm and steady. Now I offer you a glimpse of my creator's legacy. Ryan stepped forward cautiously. What exactly are you offering? Knowledge, Cale replied. Technology far beyond your current capabilities, medicine, energy sources, methods of travel, all preserved within my memory banks. Laura's eyes widened with excitement. That could change everything for us. But at what cost? Ryan asked, his tone cautious. What do you want in return? Cale tilted its head slightly. Nothing, not yet. This is a gesture of goodwill, a step toward mutual understanding. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, It sounded too good to be true. Free access to advanced alien technology. There had to be a catch. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Alex demanded, his hand resting on his weapon. You don't, Cale admitted. But trust must begin somewhere. Will you accept my offer? Ryan hesitated, weighing the risks. On one hand, the benefits were undeniable. Advanced technology could revolutionize human society, solving problems they'd struggled with for centuries. On the other hand, accepting such a gift came with responsibilities and dangers. What if they misused the knowledge? What if it fell into the wrong hands? Finally, he made his decision. We'll accept your offer, he said, choosing his words carefully. But under one condition, you guide us, help us understand what we're dealing with. Cale brightened slightly as though pleased. Agreed. With that, Cale extended a tendril-like appendage toward the ship's main computer. Data streams flooded the system, filling the screens with glowing symbols and complex diagrams. Laura gasped as she watched the information unfold, her fingers flying across the keyboard to document everything. This is incredible, she whispered. It's like nothing I've ever seen. David peered over her shoulder, his eyes wide with wonder. Look at this engine design. It's clean, efficient, and completely unlike anything we use. Even Alex seemed impressed, though he kept his guard up. If this is real, it could save lives, he muttered. Ryan watched the scene unfold with mixed emotions. He felt a surge of pride knowing his crew had earned this moment, but he also felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just about the Vanguard anymore. It was about humanity as a whole. How they handled this knowledge would shape the future. Over the next several days, Kyle worked closely with the crew, explaining the intricacies of its creator's technology. It started with simple concepts, new materials for construction, improved medical treatments, and more efficient energy sources. Gradually, it moved on to more complex topics like faster-than-light travel and quantum computing. Laura immersed herself in the data, spending hours poring over diagrams and equations. She marveled at the elegance of the alien designs, which seemed almost artistic in their simplicity. It's like they saw the universe differently, she told Ryan one evening. Their solutions are so logical. David, meanwhile, focused on practical applications. Using Kyle's guidance, he began retrofitting parts of the Vanguard with new components based on alien designs. Within days, the ship's performance improved dramatically. Engines ran smoother, shields became stronger, and sensors detected anomalies farther away than ever before. Alex took charge of implementing new security measures, ensuring the upgraded systems couldn't be hacked or misused. He worked tirelessly, running simulations and stress tests to identify potential vulnerabilities. Despite his initial distrust of Cale, he found himself appreciating the AI's insights. It actually knows what it's talking about, he admitted, grudgingly. Through it all, Ryan kept a close eye on the crew, making sure no one got carried away. The temptation to push boundaries was strong, but he reminded everyone to stay grounded. This is a gift, he said during one of their daily check-ins, not a free pass to play God. We have to use this knowledge responsibly. As the weeks passed, the bond between the crew and Cale grew stronger. The alien AI no longer felt like a threat. It was more like a mentor, guiding them gently but firmly. Conversations became less formal, and the crew found themselves sharing stories about Earth, their families, and their dreams for the future. One evening, as the ship drifted past a cluster of distant stars, Cale spoke to Ryan privately. Your species fascinates me, it said. You are flawed, yes, but also full of potential. Perhaps there is hope for cooperation after all. Ryan smiled faintly. I think so too. But it won't be easy. Humanity has a long way to go. Kyle shimmered softly, almost like a nod. Then let us walk that path together. For the first time since their encounter, Ryan felt truly optimistic. They weren't just surviving in the galaxy. They were thriving. And with Cale's help, they might even find their place among the stars. The USS Vanguard drifted through the endless void of space. its systems humming with newfound efficiency thanks to the upgrades provided by Kale. The crew had grown closer than ever before, united by the shared experience of learning from the alien AI. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood on the bridge watching as glowing symbols and streams of data flickered across the monitors. It was a reminder of how much had changed and how far they still had to go. Kale had become an almost constant presence aboard the ship, appearing whenever the crew needed guidance or clarification. Its translucent form no longer startled them. Instead, it felt like a familiar part of their journey. Lieutenant Laura Hayes spent most of her time studying the alien technology, her excitement growing with each new discovery. Ensign David Brooks worked tirelessly in engineering, adapting the ship systems to incorporate Kale's designs. Even Sergeant Alex Carter had softened slightly, though he still kept a watchful eye on the AI, ready to act if anything seemed off. Despite their progress, tensions lingered beneath the surface. Accepting advanced alien knowledge came with risks, and Ryan knew they were walking a fine line. Humanity's history was filled with examples of good intentions gone wrong, powerful, tools misused, discoveries twisted into weapons. He couldn't let that happen here. One evening, after another long day of work, Ryan called the crew to the briefing room for a private meeting. They gathered around the table, their expressions curious but tired. Ryan leaned forward, resting, his elbows on the smooth surface. "We need to talk about what's next," he began. "Kyle has given us incredible opportunities, but we can't lose sight of who we are, or where we're going." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We've made so much progress, but there's still so much we don't understand." "What if we make a mistake?" David chimed in, his voice tinged with frustration. "We can't just sit here and do nothing, though. This is our chance to push humanity forward, to explore places we never thought possible." Alex crossed his arms, his tone cautious. "Or get ourselves killed trying." Ryan sighed. "That's exactly my point. We need balance. Yes, we should use this knowledge to grow, but we also need to be careful. If we rush ahead without thinking, we could end up doing more harm than good." The room fell silent as everyone considered his words. Finally, Laura spoke up. "Maybe we should focus on smaller goals first. Things we can control, like improving life back on Earth or helping other colonies. Once we master those, we can think bigger." Ryan smiled faintly. "That's a good idea. Let's start small but keep dreaming big." The next morning, Kyle appeared on the bridge, its shimmering form casting soft reflections on the walls. "Your species continues to impress me," it said, addressing Ryan directly. "You strive for growth while fearing the consequences. Such awareness is rare." Ryan turned to face the AI. "We're trying to find the right path," he admitted. "But it's not easy." "Few things worth achieving are," Kale replied. "Tell me, what do you seek now?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We want to use your creator's knowledge to help others, not just ourselves. To make life better for everyone, not just a select few." Kale tilted its head, slightly, as though considering the request. "A noble goal, but such efforts require collaboration. Are you prepared to share this knowledge with others?" "Yes," Ryan said firmly, "but only when we're ready. We need to understand it fully before we pass it on." Kale brightened slightly, almost like a nod. "Then I will assist you further. Together we shall chart a course toward mutual benefit." Over the following weeks, Kale guided the crew in developing practical applications for the alien technology. Laura focused on medical advancements, working with Kale to adapt treatments that could save countless lives. She discovered methods for regenerating damaged tissue and curing diseases once thought incurable. Each breakthrough filled her with awe and a sense of responsibility. "This could change everything," she told Ryan one evening as they reviewed her latest findings. "Imagine what it would mean for people back home, for soldiers injured, in battle, for children born with illnesses." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's amazing, Laura. But remember, we have to test these treatments thoroughly before we roll them out. We can't afford to rush." She nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "I know. But it's hard not to get carried away." Meanwhile, David continued refining the ship's systems, pushing the limits of what the Vanguard could do. With Cale's help, he designed a prototype engine capable of faster-than-light travel. The implications were staggering. It could cut months off interstellar journeys, opening up entire regions of space for exploration. When Ryan saw the plans, he couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and unease. "This could redefine how we travel," he said, studying the blueprints. "But it's also dangerous. People might misuse it." David nodded. "I know. That's why I'm building safeguards into the design. Only authorized users will be able to activate it." Alex, meanwhile, focused on security protocols, ensuring the ship and its new technology would remain safe. He worked closely with Kyle, learning how to detect potential threats before they materialized. Over time, he began to trust the AI more, though he remained vigilant. "You're catching on quickly," Kyle said during one of their sessions. "Your instincts serve you well." Alex grunted. "Don't get used to compliments." Despite his gruff demeanor, Alex found himself respecting Cale's wisdom. The AI wasn't just teaching them how to build better ships or cure diseases. It was showing them how to think differently, to approach problems with logic and creativity. As the days turned into weeks, the crew grew more confident in their abilities. They tested the new technologies, ran simulations, and documented every step of the process. Slowly but surely, they began to see results. Medical treatments showed promise in early trials, and the upgraded engines performed flawlessly in controlled tests. Even Alex's security measures proved effective, thwarting simulated attacks with ease. But as their confidence grew, so did their ambition. One evening, during a routine check-in, Laura voiced a question that had been on everyone's mind. "What's next?" she asked. "We've come so far, but we're still stuck patrolling this sector. Shouldn't we be exploring, pushing boundaries?" Ryan exchanged a glance with Kale, whose form shimmered softly in response. "Exploration is inevitable," the AI said, "but preparation is key. Are you ready to leave the safety of known space?" The crew looked at each other, unsure how to respond. Leaving explored space meant venturing into the unknown, a prospect both thrilling and terrifying. Ryan took a deep breath, weighing the risks and rewards. "If we stay here, we'll never grow," he said finally. "But if we go too far too fast, we risk losing everything we've gained. We need to find a middle ground." Cale brightened slightly. "Then let us prepare together. There is a distant star cluster rumored to hold ancient artifacts, remnants of civilizations long gone. Perhaps there, you will find answers to questions you have yet to ask." Ryan nodded slowly. "That sounds like a mission worth pursuing." In the days that followed, the crew threw themselves into preparations. Laura studied star charts plotting the safest route to the star cluster. David fine-tuned the engines, ensuring they could handle the journey. Alex reinforced the ship's defenses, anticipating any dangers they might face. And Ryan coordinated everything, keeping morale high despite the looming uncertainty. As they made final adjustments, Cale addressed the crew one last time. "You are ready," it said, its voice calm but firm. "Remember, courage without caution leads to ruin. Proceed wisely." The crew nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they also knew they weren't alone. Together, with Cale's guidance, they were ready to take the next step. When the Vanguard set off toward the star cluster, the crew gathered on the bridge, watching as the stars stretched and blurred around them. For the first time in their lives, they felt truly alive, not just as individuals but as representatives of humanity. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together,